Yep, there we
Yeah,
go.
yeah, there's
Oh,
our recording.
I hit,
That was quick.
okay.
Hey, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm going to be your host today on Archer Talk 101. And we have a guest with us today. And like we kind of pretty much do most of the time, always interesting talking to all the archers from all over the world. And, that's the fun part of this podcast is we get to talk. And just want to let you know that you can listen to the podcast on Spotify and Audible. I just got out; it's free on Audible and then wherever else you get your podcast at. And you can also watch the video, which is always kind of interesting because sometimes we show stuff on my YouTube channel. Learn to fix it yourself. And probably the best place to go is to join the Archer Talk 101 Facebook group because you get to watch it in there. And also, we have a lot of archers in there that will help you out if you have problems with your form or have other questions. Go in there because we have bow techs and we have archers, instructors, and there's some of us been shooting for 60 years, or better. So we've seen a lot all the way through there, and that's a good place to go. So I'll leave links for everything we talk about in the description. So well, let's get started with the show. Welcome to the show. I'll have my guest introduce himself and tell a little bit about himself and maybe why he got started in archery.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Roy. I am PJ Reilly. I'm the technical writer, video guy, whatever you want to call it, for Lancaster Archery Supply. And I've been doing that, I think, 12, 13 years now, somewhere in there. Can't remember. Um, But how I got started in archery, man, my dad brought home, he worked at a high school and he brought home a bow one day. I don't know if I was like 10 years old or something, and I was hooked ever since. So yeah, just something I've always done my whole life, whether it was in any kind of formal or informal setting, I've been shooting a bow since then.
That's a while. I know I started back in the '60s when I first picked up my first bow, and it's old Ben Pearson 25-pound fiberglass recurve, and
Nice.
I still have it, and I set up for bow fishing, and I had to tape on a little bracket. I can't even get my hand in it anymore. That's how small my hands were. My hands only fit in there. But the fiberglass has got some little stress cracks in it, so I won't string it. But I still got the string, and I still got some of the original arrows that I had back then when I was in Scouts, made arrows. And my first fletching jig was like $1.65.
I have a Ben Pearson Colt 50-pound recurve that I got sometime in the 80s. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's kind of nice in that old equipment, and then of course I
Yeah.
have a PSE recurve and a couple PSE compounds and a bear compound. When I worked at Cabela's, I we got in pallets full of returns,
Oh,
and
right.
and we're one of the few stores that knew how to take them apart and fix them and put them back together and make good ones out of pieces. And so we would get them in and we'd make pieces and then we'd put them on our used rack and sell them. And I got a bear bow that come in. It needed a string and some other stuff that messed up on it. And, it sold new for like $900, just the bow, no accessories, no nothing. And I think I got it for 150 bucks or something like that because,
Man.
it'd been returned and
Yeah.
I got it all fixed up, ready to shoot. And that's as far as I went with it. Never put a
How
sight on
about
it or
that?
rest on it.
Ah, 900
It's one of
bucks.
those
Boy,
things.
that was a lot back then.
Yeah. That was probably about 8 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was
Fairly
about 8 years
recently.
ago. Yeah.
Gotcha. I
It
was
was
just
in the
saying,
snow camo and pretty cool.
I
Yeah.
have a Browning Ballistic Mirage from the 90s. And I remember that I think that bow cost like $250. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. That's a little high end there, but I still
Well,
have it.
yeah, I had my archery store right around 2001 and 2003 in that time frame, and there the PSC Novas and the Dan Fitzgerald bows, they're all the same bow, just different
Yep.
name on them. And there was three different sizes, three different draw lengths, and the weight cards went with them. And when I had my store, I'd carry two rights and one left of all the three different sizes. And it was weird. The last year I had my store, 40% of my bows were left-handed.
No kidding. Lefties, man.
Yep. And that's because I stocked left-handed bows.
I'm sure if you stock left-handed bows, I guarantee you word got around about that.
Yep. And my idea was I'm going to put you into that low end Nova range bow. Those sold for about 250 bucks. I think I had mine priced at 300. But
Yeah.
mine also, I set them all up. I give you 6 arrows with tips, flesh with
Oh,
veins,
nice.
your color veins, because I stock no pre-made arrows,
Yeah.
just raw shafts, and also a release, one of the little Patriot ones, that the low end release.
Yep.
I think I was paying like $11 selling for 20. I don't recommend those releases because they're terrible releases, but at least you had something. I'd let you
Something.
upgrade if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And then also got shooting instruction with it. So nobody could price compare.
How can you beat that?
No, I actually had one guy one time bought a bow, called me up, says, "You think I could you could bolt them on? It's not gonna be right. I'm gonna charge you $40 to put them up right, and then also gonna charge you $100 an hour for shooting instruction." He took it back, got it from me.
Oh
And
man.
my philosophy was, on a stabilizer, I'd put on the lowest end, just cheap hunk of aluminum. And
Yeah.
then I put in a little bit more expensive, and put in the high end ones. Can you tell the difference? No, buy the cheap one. Because if you can't tell the
Exactly.
difference, why spend the money? That was my
Why
thought
spend the
process
money?
behind
Yes.
that. And I actually had one guy send somebody to me because he knew I wouldn't oversell it for stuff he didn't need.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's a different world now with the internet. Everybody comes in and they know or think they know what they want. Got to have this, got to have that. I saw it on the internet.
Yeah, well, back when I had my store, there wasn't really that much free internet access. There was internet access 20 years ago, but it wasn't like it is
Uh,
now.
no, yeah,
And
right.
so you really couldn't price compare. I had a
No.
guy one time tell me a story. People was constantly coming in. And it's like, well, I can buy this over the internet cheaper. And finally, he just said, okay, I'll sell it to that price. Paid for it, stuck it in the counter, says you can come back and get it in 7 to 10 days. So well, I'm on now. It's like, no, I'm matching their service and their time frame of getting it.
Yes. Got to ship to you. This is
Yeah,
shipping
yeah.
time.
It's like
Sitting
seven
here.
to ten days when it would normally arrive, you can have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they decided to pay full price then, but he
That's a good
didn't
one.
elaborate on the story much more than that. But I thought that was funny. Where, like, okay,
That's good.
return it. Well, you got to pay to return it. You ordered
Yeah,
the wrong
yeah.
thing. Yeah, that's
That's
why
good
going to pro shops is the best place to go.
for
Now,
sure.
like your Bass Pro, Cabela's, and Dick's, and Shields, and all those other chain stores, you can get good Bowtechs in them. When I worked there, we had some good Bowtechs,
Yeah.
but most of them you couldn't depend on them there. And after I left and John left, and from Cabela's, you go in there, it's like, well, I shot a bow when I was a kid. So I wanted someplace else, but they gave me archery because I at least knew what a bow was. And
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah. Yep. You're the manager then.
actually, when I started at Cabela's here in La Vista, the archery lead didn't know anything hardly about bows. I'm teaching him how to work on bows. They didn't know how to
Oh
do
man.
them.
Yeah, for sure.
But at that point, I'd been working on bows for 15 years,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
professionally.
Uh-huh. That's great.
But tell me about some of your writing that you've done,
Okay.
and what you've been doing in archery.
So, yeah, I guess so. I was never good at science or math, just not my thing. So I went to Catholic grade school. So grammar, punctuation, and spelling was beat into my head. So as I came up, writing was the skill that I had. And, I loved fishing. I didn't get into hunting until after college, but I was interested in it. Um, Fishing, I did all my life and shot bows. And so I was like, I might like to write for these hunting and fishing magazines. So went to college, got an English degree, got out and just started to try and I worked for newspapers, daily newspapers for 25 years, I think. Um, But I wanted to get into those hunting and fishing magazines. While that's a tough nut to crack.
Yeah,
Um,
I can imagine.
so, oh, you don't know me from Adam, but I'll do an article for you about bow hunting whitetails in the rut. Oh, no, thank you. I got 80 guys I know who can do that. So I started to study the magazines and find things that they weren't writing about that I thought maybe they might be interested in. And so that was kind of my way in. And in the magazine world, it's kind of a snowball effect. Once you're in, you get to the next one, you get to the next one, you know, make yourself a dependable writer, and it just kind of snowballs from there. Um, so I started doing what I will call weird hunts, just because I could, I'd look at a map. I remember everybody was, back in the 90s, everybody was writing about Ohio, Illinois, of course, Pennsylvania. There was kind of a big circle around Indiana. Nobody was writing about Indiana. I was like, well, everybody's hunting around it. That's got to be interesting there. So I was like, all right, I'll go to Indiana. Um, and just, it was typical Midwest hunting. I don't know why nobody was writing about it, but they weren't. So boom, that got me. Yeah, I think I did that one for Buckmasters maybe. Um, and just kind of things like that. Little off the I mentioned once before, at the time I did it, early 2000s, I was like, all right, there's all these draw hunts. What is the most difficult whitetail tag in the country to get? And by my research, it was a firearms tag for North Dakota. It was going to take a minimum of 5 years to get it. So I went through the 5 years. I got it. Went out there, shot 160-inch whitetail. Boom, sold that. So just stuff like that along the way is how I got in. And I I've written for I would say most of the hunting and most of the hunting magazines, not most of the fishing magazines, some hunting and fishing, but you name it, I've probably written for it. Um, and yeah, just kind of went there. I've worked through the newspapers for years. Got to know Rob Caulfield, owner of Lancaster Archery, because that was my local pro shop. And one day, maybe 15 years ago, I saw him somewhere and he said, "Hey, I'm going to get my website together and you're going to come work for me." I was like, "Ha ha, yeah, okay, whatever." And then one day he called me up and he said, "Hey, my website's ready to go. I want you to come work for me." And that was about the time newspapers were taking the nosedive. So it was a good jump, and kind of got in there. And he was just like, all right, I was originally hired to do a blog. I wrote a blog for Lancaster Archery. My articles are still there. But then while we were doing that, YouTube was kind of coming up, and Rob was like, hired a video guy, and he was like, "Hey, this seems like a good avenue for telling people." His thing was just telling, not everybody can get to a pro shop and see these products, these archery products.
Right.
Why don't you guys go on, make videos showing people so they can see them up close without being there? And he's like, I think that would be a good idea. So he's like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know anything about the nuts and bolts. You guys figure it out. So we just kind of went from there, and it just it took off. We've been doing that ever since. But I remember one year, new bows were coming out. It's like, nobody really does videos about new bows when they launch. And so there were a couple people, who were sponsored, so they did that brand, but nobody kind of did them all. And so we just started doing that, getting these bows in, telling people about them. And, now there's 50 people doing it.
Yeah.
But back then, there really weren't anybody doing that. So just kind of that's the path. It's kind of been up to us to Rob kind of gives us free reign to explore. And, he started our competition archery media where we broadcast tournaments on TV. Again, that was something that he just kind of said, we need to do this, figure it out. And so now we're on the Sportsman's Channel. We broadcast the ASAs, the national ASAs live. So just kind of all things archery that we're into.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I've seen some of those with the videos, the little bit of pieces of different shoots and stuff, and that's kind of
Yeah,
interesting. I'll sit there and I'll watch those sometimes, and sometimes
yeah,
I'd like to see more of it, but sometimes just a little short, 2 minute, two guys shooting three shots,
yeah.
and it's kind of interesting to
It's
see all the different things.
it's like cornhole and frisbee golf. They're on TV. Why shouldn't archery be on TV? So,
Right.
because it used to be, ESPN2 way back in the 90s, they broadcast the ASAs all the time, and then that kind of, when Disney bought them, and now shooting foam animals wasn't right anymore.
Yeah.
That kind of went away, and so it was kind of dead for at least 10 years, if not more.
Yeah.
And so we've kind of been bringing that back.
Yeah. That's pretty good. Yeah, it looks like that sun is right in your eyes, isn't it?
Ah, man, I was like, it's right at a crack in the trees there. It should be going away. I should have
Hey,
thought about this.
yeah, you got half your face is all white, bleached out,
Where
and the
the
other half is
computer
normal.
is, I gotta hold up like something over here. There we go.
A little better.
Yeah, I'll prop this up here till that sun goes in. Shouldn't
Yeah,
be long.
yeah, yeah. Kind of at that time when the sun starts coming in the windows, and
Yeah.
fortunately, I don't have any windows points to the sun, so I got a north-facing window in my office. So, but yeah,
Um,
that sounds like that was definitely quite a journey to get where you're at, and
Crazy, it's and I don't I'm not a complete idiot, but I can look around the industry and see there's not really anybody who does what I do. Um, so there's kind of more people who kind of do it, but especially when I started, there was nobody.
right,
So I always knew it was like, well, it's not like doing something that everybody else is doing. Is this, a real thing? Is this sustainable? But Rob he's a master marketer. And so his thing is, hey, more information about archery is never a bad thing. He's like, so we're doing this. We're all in. So, and actually, I should mention, technically, the YouTube channel, we need that to put the videos on our website. Like when you go to the product page, I want to buy the Excel driver site. That's where our video lives, and we needed YouTube as that vehicle. So it was kind of like, well, since we have to put it on YouTube to get it on our website, why don't we just have that channel exist on its own as well? So, that's where we have our channel on YouTube, and we're up to like 126,000 subscribers or something. I think we might have had like maybe 20,000 when I started, 15, 20,000. It was just, we had we host a tournament every year, the Lancaster Archery Classic. And we put some of our videos from the classic on there. That was the only thing that was on it. So it was very rudimentary and basic. And, the classic video production in itself through the years, I think we just had 22 years of the classic. Now that video production is like world class. It's
yeah,
top shelf. We go all out for that. Um, so yeah, just you never know what we're going to get into.
yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting, that's when you're putting together videos to put onto a website, there's there's links to YouTube. You can link it right into the YouTube. If you're going to put up a raw video, it's kind of a big convoluted way to get that video up
Yes,
there, where you can just
exactly.
click, here's the link to your video on YouTube, and there you go. And um,
And we don't even, and so we are even able to embed it. So it's not even the link. You're actually clicking on the
yeah,
video anymore. But yeah, when we looked into just putting up the raw video, like you said, it was a pain in the neck. It wasn't worth it. YouTube made it so much simpler.
yeah. Well, and when I put together my videos for my YouTube channel is Learn to Fix It Yourself, and I finally just got monetized here last week.
Ah,
Got 1,000
nice.
subscribers, so
Yeah.
it's been there. It really helps when you put the video out and then I use Opus Clip now,
Yep.
and it just splits them off for you. And I don't edit those little clips; I just put them out, so you'll see these little bitty pieces, and it
Yeah.
does a pretty good job. And that's really helped growing my channel, get them out there because you can post, you know, 70, 80, 100 of those little shorts a day.
Right. Yeah. The shorts, that's where it's at. That those just go crazy viral.
Yeah, get one little bitty piece and away you go. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. And but the podcast, I just do them like this. I don't edit them or nothing. The
Yep.
only one I edited is when I actually stopped the recording in the middle. I had to merge them back together. But now my
Yes.
videos that I create for YouTube, those I edit.
Oh,
And
right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you're talking about, the quality of the videos they're putting out. If you have an hour long video, you might spend 3 hours editing that video.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I normally spend double at least.
We got a great video editor now. He's real creative and just does a bunch of cool stuff, cool effects. One of the things that we also do periodically is kind of tell the story of different archery things happening. Um, we went to the NFA shoot in Redding, California, made a series there about what it's like. The first total archery challenge when it came to Pennsylvania, we went to that to see, hey, what's TAC about? There's a traditional archery rendezvous near here that we went to. It's the biggest in the East. We went to that. So just kind of different things so that we can show people, hey, here are these events that involve archery that are out there happening. If you want to check them out, anybody can go to these things. So again, all going back to Rob's kind of idea is that if we create more archers, he's like, it's not necessarily promoting Lancaster archery. It's just if there are more archers in the world, Lancaster archery will do fine. So that's kind of his emphasis. Let's get more people shooting bows. Shop where you want. I don't care. It will
Yeah,
help us in the long run.
yeah, and that's a good place to buy some of your equipment. And I'll
Yeah,
leave a
for
link. I'll
sure.
leave a link to it in the description. Make it easier for people to find it. And
You know,
there's a lot of good stuff out there.
we have these three trailers. They're basically like mobile archery shops that we send out to tournaments and archery events, kind of to be the pro shop on the ground there. And now they've become kind of in their own industry. But what it started at was Rob with archery gear in the trunk of his car. And it was just, he would go to these shoots. It was to, build brand awareness. But more importantly, what he says is to be the pit crew for the archers who are at that event. If you need something, we'll help you with it. Fix it, sell it to you, whatever you need, new knocks, we got them. Just to have that presence there. And we have these three, I think they're like 38-foot trailers, ridiculous.
Yeah,
But three of them now, and it started Rob in the trunk of his car.
yeah. Well, and
And
there's
just
there's a lot of things that happen that you might need, and
for sure.
strings is one thing. I actually had a guy call me up just when I had my shop, just for not too long before I was closing, and maybe half hour or so before I closed, and he says, "Do you have a stringer? Can you make me a string?" Because he knew I made strings,
Yeah.
and for his bow, and I says, "Well, I'm can we do it tomorrow?" He says, I got a tournament tomorrow and I need a string. It's like, okay, come on. And so he showed up, about time we closed, and he come in, and I believe it was a Darton, and Dartons have a little skinnier uh, spot for your string. You can't have as thick a string on them because the track is way smaller.
Oh, right.
And,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and I knew that, so I made the normal string. There's always a range like 12 to 16 or something like that, and I always
Hmm.
make them in the middle. Just because you don't need them that big on most of these bows. And so I made the string, and I did the first part of the serving so I could try it in the track. Too big. Throw that one away. Start over. Two less strands. And then I got it all done. The time he walked in, the time he walked out was less than an hour.
How about that?
And I made basically one and a half strings.
Oh man.
you, you know,
Yeah,
and, and
it's
and that's something is, the new bows, I can't work on the new bows because they're parallel band, parallel limbs. And even my little cable um portable one won't press those new bows. My press is an
gotcha.
old Apple press, so the older bows,
Yep, yep.
back when I my shop, so if you can get the string off, I can make you a new string. But the
Yeah,
new ones I
yeah.
can't get a string off,
How
and
about that?
it's kind of neat how you can make all different
Yeah,
kind of colors and patterns. And
for
I
sure.
did one that was three different colors, three little like a brown, a green, and a tan or something. And instead of normally you twist them, I
Yeah.
took and I braided the three different colors. I
Ah,
braided them. So
sort of
this is a
Flemish
braided line.
style.
You kind of almost,
A
except
little
I took the
bit.
loops, braided them inside, over and under.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the hard part of that is figuring out exactly how much extra longer you need to make them.
Yeah, yeah,
And
because
then
as
you
it
can still twist
shrinks.
them, and they kind of formed a little bit different pattern. And I had that
How
string on
about
my
that?
bow for many years until it finally broke.
Huh.
I had it sitting away, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess got to make a new string.
Uh, well, yeah, I mean, as you can mention with that guy, if that happens when you're at a tournament, what are you going to do? Unless you brought a backup bow, you're out of luck.
Yeah.
So,
Now some will, some won't, but a
yeah.
string jig don't take up much room, and it
Mm-mm.
don't take long to do it. And I do mine a little bit differently because you don't have to stretch mine after I make them. There's no need to stretch them.
Okay.
Because what I do is like I'm doing two colors. I'll tie the two colors together when I change colors, and at the end, I'm going to tie those two colors together. So I have one continuous loop with knots in it, and then I put it on the jig. Anybody don't know, you got basically two fingers on each end that you can turn, and I
Yeah.
will move that out tight, and then I'm going to turn those, which stretches that really tight.
Yeah.
Puts a lot of pressure on my jig, but oh well. And then
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
all the strands are the same tension and everything because I've moved them around until they were. And then as I start making the string, now I've already pre-stretched it. And I serve the end loops, and then I'll tie it around, and then I'll serve the one, and and then now that I serve them, I don't like the strings that have all the strands loose that go over the little pins.
Right.
I
Yes.
like them served in so that now I have a
Uh-huh.
solid. I'm not, because I've had some, it's like I missed one, I just tore one, just
Yeah.
destroyed one of the strands. And what do you do? And so I like to do that. And so I've never had any trouble with any of my strings stretching. Once you do them, you
Nice.
put them together, and a few shots until you get everything all lined up for your peeps
Yep.
and stuff like that. And now I use BCY. Is all I use for
Sure.
my strings. I use the 8125, which is a really, really good quality string. There's some newer ones out, all the fancy stuff, but you know,
Yeah.
I've got multiple different colors of both that and then ones for recurves. So I could probably make a new string for my comp, new strings and cables for my compound, and new string for my recurve every week, and never run out of material except for end loop material in the center serving.
That stuff lasts forever. We had a period where we made strings in the shop, um, but then it got crazy and we have a company make them for us, but we still have all the gear to fix strings. If you got to reserve, we do all that.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what's nice about those jigs. You can do that, and
yeah.
just the center serving, just put the bow in a bow press, and
Right.
just reserve that. But if you have to do the end loops, that's
And loops.
a little bit tougher. You got to take them off the bow, and that's what's nice about having your own equipment. You can do that, and All my
Yes.
bows are old enough that I can press all of them in my bow press.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice having basically in our video studio, I have everything set up there so I can do whatever I need to these bows when they come in, and it's pretty cool. That's kind of how I learned, was just working in the shop and doing stuff myself, and it's fun. I kind of like it, and that's becoming real popular now. Like Last Chance Easy Green Press is almost always one of our top sellers every month. That and Bits and
Right.
Burger jigs. So people actually, Bits and Burgers, I can't believe every archer in the country doesn't have at least two by now, based off how many we sell. Uh,
I have 8 of them.
but there you go. Yeah. So
And
it's
I
cool to
used to have
see.
a dozen of the old BPE ones, the plastic ones, but I've
Uh-huh.
sold some off. But the bits and burgers, I've got the jig, plus I got the straight clamp and the helical clamp, the right
For
helical
sure.
clamp, plus the knock down and knock out receivers.
Yep.
So I can do all those, and when I was getting them, they were, I don't know, I think like $35 or something a piece for them. This is like 20 some years ago, and now
Yeah,
they're way more
yeah.
than that.
Yeah,
But
they're
the
like
plastic ones,
95 now.
the plastic ones, they're okay if you're going to do, maybe 2 dozen arrows a year
Yeah,
or
exactly.
less. But if you're going to fletch them, more than that, they just don't stand it very well. And
The the glue eats away the plastic over time, and then
yeah.
you're gonna get a groove in them, and yeah, it's Bitses. You can do what you need. Those things last for years.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and then too, you can adjust them up. Now, when I was redoing, have to refletch arrows, I never tried to redo one. You come in, it's the same price whether you need one fletching or two or three,
Right.
because I'm
Yeah.
gonna strip them all off because I can't be sure, even if I fletched them, which one of the jigs I had 12 BPEs and I had 8 Bitzenbergers. Which one was it
Yeah.
done on? They're not
Right.
exactly the same. They're close, but not
Yep.
exactly the same. The only way to be able to do that is have one jig. You set up, you do one arrow at a time.
Right.
And before hunting season, I had, all 20 of my jigs going. Plus, I had a Joe Jan that did 6.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I had all those were going constantly, day and night, fletching arrows. Uh, that's just the way you go. Come season and you get ready to do that. And
Yeah.
uh, I had one guy says his price for his work varies based on what time of season it is. The closer to hunting season, the more he charges per hour
The
to work
more
on
you
stuff.
charge. Uh-huh.
The more
Yeah.
you charge, so don't wait till the last minute. And
Exactly. Yeah, it amazes me every year. It's actually just now starting. We're starting the upswing now, to where Saturdays are our crazy days. During the week, it's still quiet, and we always think, man, all those people 3 months from now, if they would come in now, man, everything would be so much easier. But no, they'll wait till August, September, and
oh,
it is what
we
it
have more
is.
time to work with you. If you come in,
Exactly.
we're
Yeah.
really busy. I don't have time to
No.
go out and spend time with you on your stuff
Yeah.
unless you're paying me $100 an hour to teach you. Um, then I can spend the time. But if you're just coming in,
And
I've got a line of people to work on, and I don't have
yeah,
the time to dedicate what I'd like to. You
I'm
know,
always amazed at people who, we get reviews and we get messages online, and they complain about the long line. And it's like, well, if you want us to put this level of service into every customer, guess what? That takes time and
right?
people. But if you'd have come 2 months ago, we could have spent all day with you and had nobody else there.
Yeah, like the guy that
It's
come in needed a string. He'd come in. I wasn't busy because was getting ready to close, and I didn't mind staying late, help him out
Yeah,
because I
sure.
didn't have a whole line of people. And
Yeah.
I had another guy come in. He called me up. Can you set my bow up to shoot two arrows at one time? And he said he called the other shops. They said, no, no. I said, okay, that's interesting. You know, so I says, you can't afford me while I'm open. So why don't you show up about 8 o'clock when I close at 8 o'clock and we'll play. And we played around and we got it set up to shoot to him. Now it was not a center shot design riser bow. So use the stick on rests.
Okay.
So it was an older style. So it made it a little bit easier on the rest, because you could put them on the side.
Yeah.
But playing around, we ended up by the time we got done, the difference between the spacing of the arrows on every shot was less than an eighth of an inch difference.
Oh, wow.
So we'd measure the spacing, shoot. Once we finally got to that point, it took
How
a while to
about
get
that?
there. We probably spent hour and a half playing around with different
Yeah.
things. How do we want the fletching lined up? That changes it all. And with some would close together, but it wasn't consistent. And each shot was a little different. And he wanted to use a release. So now we're dealing with loops on there instead of finger above one and in the middle and then below them. So
Right.
of course we had to put a knock point for the second one. So I got those all lined up and we tried the loop in between. We tried to loop all different places. We finally, the only way to get a consistent release was not above the first arrow and below the bottom arrow. And
Uh-huh.
that's where we got our cleanest release. And that also proved why you want to do that on your regular compounds.
Yeah.
You don't want to tie a knot above your arrow and put a loop on it. All that does is force the force of the arrow is not direct through the shaft. It's offset a little bit. If you offset the force on the shaft, it's going to twist it at an angle.
You're saying a knock set above the knock
Do
or
not put one on.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
So
do not.
that's interesting. So I don't put one on there. And you have all these people out there now who are saying, oh, tie a knock set below and a knock set above. And two of the pros I talked to, Christopher Perkins, Levi Morgan, both of them said, no, we tie one on the bottom, not on the top. And they said they have found knock pinch they will get just problems if they put two knock sets on there. So I do not. But one of the things that I would say I've learned in archery is there are 800 ways to do the same thing, whatever it is. I've I've just seen enough of these people to where it's you have to do it this way. I know pros who do one thing one way. I know pros who do it exactly the opposite, and they're both successful. So to me, that doesn't mean one's right or one's wrong. It means it doesn't really matter. they
Right.
they figured it out.
You can take a completely out of tune bow and it'll shoot the same arrow the same way every time. It may not be
Yeah.
where you want it to go. Now, don't put a broadhead on it because that changes everything. But I put a field tip on it and it's going to shoot the same way every time.
So um, Brady Ellison, Olympic recurve archer for the United States. He's the only archer who has shot a 900 at Vegas in the Vegas shoot with a recurve. Only one who's ever done it. When he did it, he had the worst arrow flight that I've ever seen out of a recurve bow. That thing was flying sideways the whole way down to the target. I was like, Brady, what's up with that? He said, I know. He said, it doesn't matter. It hits exactly the same spot every time. That's all I care about. And so, people spending all this time to try, broadhead's a different
Right.
animal. This is just field points, but everybody trying to get this perfect flight. The pros that I know are more interested in, I want that thing to hit where I'm aiming.
Right. And that's when you're looking at arrow flight and being consistent, it doesn't matter what your arrow's doing. Now, if you're looking at maximum transfer of energy from your bow to your arrow for penetration,
Yeah,
now then you need to have that force straight behind them.
for sure.
And I've said this on all the times too. Take a pencil, put it on a table, put your finger on the eraser, and push straight towards the tip. Arrow goes straight. Now move your finger over just a millimeter. What's that arrow do or that pencil do? It turns.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
if you want maximum amount of force into that arrow, you have to push it straight from the nock to the tip.
Got to go
And
straight.
that's
Yeah.
in both directions, up and down, left and right.
Yep.
Now, is it going to affect target? Probably not. Maybe if you're in the wind,
Yeah,
because the
yeah,
arrow that
yeah.
wants to turn sideways in the wind is going to
Right.
get caught a little bit differently than,
Yeah.
affect differently than one's flying straight. Um, but there's a thing we went over one time when I was down at PSC down at their dealer school. They was talking about um, they did some testing between vanes and feathers, which one flies better,
Uh-huh.
and they also did how much of an offset or helical do you want, and so what they did was they shot the arrows, straight fletched out of vanes and then feathers. And what they determined was feathers are faster initially
Oh,
because there's
right.
more drag, they slow down more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Longer range. Now,
Yep.
at hunting ranges, you're not going to notice the difference.
No.
But longer range, your feathers going to slow down more because of the drag.
Sure.
And then they did testing for offset. And if you have a straight fletched or as an offset or a really hard helical, and they found that any kind of an offset or helical is going to stabilize it just as well, better than a straight fletch. But
Sure.
the more offset or more helical you had, the faster it rotated. The rotational
Yep.
speed was faster. And what they found was the faster the rotational speed, at some point, the rotational speed is going to be the same as the forward speed, and your arrow drops.
Yes.
So it's going to go over and
Yep.
then it's just going to drop the faster you spin it. Now,
Yeah.
straight didn't stabilize it. Offset, just like a 3-degree offset, is all you need.
Yep.
Um, I have
I
a
do
helical jig.
everything. I do everything 2 degrees. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I have, my arrows, I got a carbon arrow. So you can't offset them much unless you try and wrap them around the arrow. So I
Right.
have them
Yeah.
so if they're straight, they're just slightly off. I use a
Yes.
helical jig. And then
Yep.
so I mostly take most of the helical out of it because you can't wrap them around the arrow.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the veins now that we use or that I use are too short to get the helical.
Right.
You're
So you had a
using a
little bit of
two,
offset.
2.25 inch vein. You're not really curving anything.
No. Well, and I shoot 4-inch feathers. I still shoot 4-inch feathers. That's all I've ever
Gotcha.
shot.
Yep.
For
Yep.
uh 60 years I've been shooting feathers and I
Yeah.
still shoot
Yeah. Yeah.
feathers.
Yeah.
I have to deal with a
Yeah.
little bit of a rain if I'm out and it's raining, but you know what? I got one arrow that got knocked and the other two are staying dry because they're in my quiver.
That's right.
And at some point I just switch them out. If it's raining
uh,
that bad, I go home.
yeah. Yes. You and me both. I'm a little bit of rain. I can deal with that. I'm not a downpour rain guy. No.
No.
Uh-uh.
I went out one time and it's talking about it's supposed to quit raining, it's supposed to quit raining, didn't quit raining, didn't quit raining. Finally, it's like, you know what? We're leaving. So my son and I are walking out. What walks in front of us? A doe. So so I tell him, okay, Chris, stand behind me, get ready. And then because they're looking at me and he can move
Yeah.
around behind me only once, get ready, and then and if move off the side, if you can get a shot, take a shot. And it's like it didn't stay around long enough for him to do that, but
Yeah. Yeah, I was chasing a giant 8 pointer near my house one year, and 4 years I got pictures of them. And what I noticed, mostly at night, I noticed if it was lightly raining, he was out. And so one day I happened to be home, started raining a little bit. I was like, and it was about that time when I could count on him being around. Went out to my stand. Sure enough, here he comes with a doe, and I missed him at 25 yards. Buck fever, and I choked. But everything worked perfect up to that point.
I'll tell you, you had to get involved.
Yeah, that was for PA, Pennsylvania. That was so I figured based on the pictures I had that he was 7.5 when I missed him, which around me that is ancient. Like
Right.
there was him, and then I had nothing that I could verify was over 3.5. Nothing in between. Most were 2.5. So he was a unicorn. And then the neighbor shot him opening day gun season.
Yeah.
That's the way it
Go
goes.
figure, right?
He survived 7 years of gun season. That one he didn't.
Well, you had your chance first.
I did. That's right. And actually, The one year that I really could have killed him, he came right in. I'd already filled my buck tag. We only get one buck tag. I had him at 15 yards broadside, but my tag was gone. Couldn't
Yeah,
shoot
he
him.
couldn't shoot him. Yeah.
He was fun to chase, though. I don't get that where I am. There's a lot of pressure, so you don't get much of a history with deer. Um, like there was never a deer like him. I've been hunting and living in the same area 40 years. Well, I've lived here my whole life, hunting 40 years. Um, but there was never a deer like that before, and there hasn't been one since. It just doesn't happen. Three and a
Was it?
half, they're dead.
Yeah. Well, 7.5 is pretty old for a deer. I don't
Yeah.
think they'll live much longer than that anyway.
And so that was the thing. He was so particular about when he did things. And like that year was the year I had the most daylight evidence of him. I'm like, he's like losing it a little bit. He doesn't have the same edge he used to have.
Yeah.
I saw him one time where a bunch of deer, he stood back in the woods, let every deer go out into the field. And then when he went out, he was just on the highest alert of any deer I've ever seen. Um, and yeah, he just lost some of that alertness there in that last year. His body was shrinking down. He wasn't as big as he had been body wise, but
Yeah.
um, it was cool. That was a fun deer to chase. 160-inch 8 pointer he ended up being. So he was a
That's yeah, big one.
stud.
Well, at least somebody got to eat the meat.
Exactly. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, if
It was interesting. I wrote an article about chasing this deer, for 4 years and having all these pictures and stuff. And so the guy who killed him, I didn't know he killed him. He saw my article and he contacted me and said, "Hey, if you want to know what happened to that deer, I got him in my house." He was an Amish guy. I live in Amish country. And yeah, he had it. He had it all mounted there. And I had, hundreds of photos of this deer. And I was showing them to him. He said, "I almost feel like maybe you ought to have this mount in your house." I said, "No, no, you killed him fair and square. You
yeah,
know, he's yours."
yeah. Well, at least the meat didn't go to waste.
No, for sure. Yep. Yeah, he said he had, and the funny thing, he said he had never seen that deer. He'd been living there his whole life. Never saw that deer before. It came through opening day chasing a doe. Boom, he shot at the end.
Yeah, that was yeah,
Funny
that
how
that's
that
that's pretty, it
happens.
makes actually a really cool story.
Yeah, it was good. I was glad to hear what happened to him. So
Yeah, because it had disappeared. If it had made it through that hunting season,
I would have
may
never
have
known.
died someplace and been coyote food.
Yep. I didn't, so I never knew where he lived. He would show up in the area that I was allowed to hunt every year, right around Halloween. He'd be there for 3 weeks and then he'd be gone. So there was most of the year where I'm like, is he alive? Is he dead? I don't know, because I don't know where he is. He would just show up in that same area 4 years in a row. He did it. It was like every year I'm checking my trail cameras. Is he there? Is he there? Oh, there he is. He's here. All right, it's go time. But I only ever saw him maybe myself four or maybe 5 times that I ever saw him in 4 years. So he was a sneaky guy, but I had pictures of him. I'll never forget this. He so I had 4 trail cameras set up in different areas of this section of woods, and I went out one day at noon. It was raining. I was like, oh, okay, this was before cell cameras, so I went out and I said, I'm going to go pull all my cards. So I went out and got all my cards. 2 weeks later, I went back again to get my cards. That first day that I went out, that buck was 1 hour behind me on every camera. He went to every one of them. I'm like, man, he was following me. And the last one was 15 yards from my tree stand. So if I'd have been in it, he'd have been right there. But he was right. and there wasn't like a path was the weirdest thing. Like I was cutting through the woods. I'm like, why would he do that? How is it that he would end up on every one of my cameras like exactly an hour apart? Like he took the same path I did.
Like he was
So I,
following you.
I like he was following me. I can't say that, but that's sure what it looked like from the evidence. But he was a smart one, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing what they end up doing sometimes. You know, you,
So yeah, uh, 2 years ago, hunting the same property, and I hadn't had a picture of a buck in 2 months. It was the last day of our gun season, which our gun season's crazy. People with guns everywhere. But this section of woods, I can only hunt with a bow. So had been getting pictures of does, and I thought, there's a bunch of does showing up there. I'll go out with my tree stand, sit the last day with my bow. Went out there at noon, climbed up my tree, just wanted to make sure I was plenty early. I mean, I got up in my stand, got all my stuff situated, sat down, and I looked and I said, oh, here comes a deer. I get my binoculars up. Wow, that's a buck. Stood up, turned around. By the time I grabbed my bow, he was coming into my shooting lane. Hadn't had time to range him or nothing. I just was like, I think that's 40 yards. Had to go to the old school method. Boom, shot right through the heart, ran 60 yards and died. Walked down there. Here it's this nice 10 pointer that I had never seen before. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, wait a minute. This is the last day of PA gun season. I'm hunting with a bow. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I just shot the third best PA buck I've ever killed, and I've never seen him before. If you'd have told me this morning this was going to happen, I'd have said, you're crazy. There's no way that's ever happening. But you don't know if you're not out there.
well, yeah, you never know. And I, places I've hunted, there's noon. They're out moving around about noontime.
Yeah, I who knows? He could have got kicked up by some drivers or something off the property. I have no idea, but he fortunately came within 40 yards of me. Uh,
I I had one kind of almost similar to that where it was a little bit late getting our tree stand. So I climb up in the tree stand. I'm in there. I got my bow hanging up. I'm all strapped in, ready to go. Just barely gotten ready, and a deer coming, and I seen antlers on it. It's like, well, okay. Grab my bow, turn around. It pops out. I'm looking at the kill zone where I want. I draw back and I shoot. And I didn't even know how big he was. Yeah, I didn't care. It's like I'm gonna shoot it. I'll shoot
yeah,
does. I don't care. I just wanted to meet.
me neither,
And
for sure.
and he's in the back of my truck, laying on his side, and I'm inside the range, sitting down. It's like I can see his antlers over the top of the back of the truck. Like he is a nice size, probably like a 130 class right in there. I never
Yeah,
did have him
yeah,
scored, but it's like that's a bigger deer than I thought because I seen a wreck. I never even looked at him. I hauled him
yeah,
out. I never really paid attention to him till he's sitting in the back of the truck and the antlers are sticking up. I can see
yeah,
them.
yeah. It's almost better that way sometimes, I think,
Yeah, yeah.
if you don't know what he is. Because, like the giant that I had, I knew what he was and I got spooked.
I, I one time I at the same tree stand, I had this little spike buck come walking in, and he's standing around giving me shots after shots after shot. And I'm just watching him because I figure he's going to tell me when a bigger one comes in. And
Yes,
I wasn't going to shoot him,
exactly.
so he's just there giving me all kinds of shots. I could have shot him 20 times, but finally he finally walked off, and I was like, he's my best decoy. Another buck comes in and going to chase him off.
Yes. Yeah, it's always good to have those scouts like that.
I had another time I had this young buck. He had like a perfect rack on him. He was, probably only about 6 inch tall tines, but it was like an eight pointer. It was a perfect rack. And I'm looking at him, it's like, okay, is he sick or what? But no, he was just a skinny young deer. It's like maybe a year and a half, but he'd had nice rack on him. And I wasn't going to shoot him. And then my hunting partner, he got tired. He got walking up and says, Mike, you just chased off my 8 point. I wasn't going to shoot him anyway, but
Yeah,
I just gave
yeah.
him crap because he started walking up and here this deer is standing there. Uh, Another story is saying is Mike shot a deer come run up past my tree stand and his deer's on a run and he head butted a tree, died mid stroke and hit the
Huh.
tree and fell over. I was like, I'm sitting there laughing. It's like, that was funny.
How the heck did that happen? Yeah.
Yeah, he was running and he died mid run and just running right into head butted the tree.
Yeah. There's so many stories that happen out there in the woods. I tell my wife it's you just there's only one way to see these things. You got to be in a tree stand. That's it.
Yeah,
You can drive down the road all you want. You're just not going to see these things.
no, you're not. And I know one night I was up in the tree stand and the rabbits are scurrying around, the squirrels are running, the birds are chirping, and then all of a sudden it's like it got completely quiet, no sound at all. It's like they said, okay, time to go to sleep right now, and no sound. It's like
Well,
that was cool.
the first bear I shot in Manitoba, um, I was in my tree stand and similar situation, birds and all that kind of stuff. And I just remember all of a sudden, man, boom, everything went dead quiet. And I was like, that's kind of weird. What is, what's going on here? And then I looked and I see this bear coming in and I'm watching him walk and he's not making a sound. Walking on the ground, no footsteps. I can hear nothing, but everything in the woods knew he was coming and just shut up. And he came in and I shot him. It was like 400 pounds spring weight. It was a pretty good one. He was almost 7 footer. Um, but yeah, there's the things in the woods. Um, Another time I was hunting in Canada, I had 8 bears around me, all walking around my tree stand. And I remember the guy when he took me in, he said, they know you're there. He said, we're hunting a bait site. He's like, my bait sites have been here for 20 years. He said, they know hunters and they know you're up there. He said, and they're comfortable because we only shoot a certain age class. And he said, don't worry about the ones that don't pay attention to you. He said, the ones to worry about are the ones that are staring at you. He said, that's most likely a young boar. And he said, if they get to the base of your tree, they will come up. So he said, just kind of hang out and pay attention. He said, but don't let them get to the base of your tree. And so I have 8 bears walking around me. I'm trying to look in my head's on a swivel. And there was one that was staring dead at me. And he started walking closer, closer. I thought, I don't know what this thing's going to do. So I had a water bottle. I started squirting water at him, hit him one time, and he didn't want to mess with me anymore. But I just thought, yeah, this is probably not the greatest place to be with 8 bears walking around. It was a fun night, though. It was one I'll never forget.
Yeah, with that many of them around, and
Yeah, yeah, just all around, all too small. He was a guy. He still hunts. Mike Ukranet's his name was. Mike's outfitting in Alberta, I think he is. And he had the best, you hear all kinds of things about how to tell if it's a boar or a sow, whether how big it is. There's all kinds of systems. Look at the head, look at the butt. He didn't mess with any of that. And he had the best system I've ever seen. He would put a post out there, and I forget how high it was. He said, when the bear's back is above this post, shoot him. That's a mature boar. He said, anything else? He said, the biggest sow in the world, the back won't be above this post. And I remember one night I had this giant bear coming in. I'm seeing this big, wide, it looks huge, but it came in and it was under that post. And I told him about it, and then he shows me pictures. He's like, yeah, I know that bear. He's like, it's an old sow, but it's a sow. And so I always appreciate it. I was like, that's the most foolproof system I've ever seen for judging what kind of bear to shoot. He was like, and if the back's above this, that one will be Pope and Young, guaranteed. And he's been right as far as I know. He shoots big
Yeah.
bears.
Yeah, I know that, when I first started, I had no idea how to tell if a deer was a fawn or an adult or how old it was or anything. And, finally, watch all these hunting shows and they brag about how, they're good hunting areas. Well, they're probably hunting, well managed properties that nobody
Yeah,
else gets to hunt.
right.
Um, but finally, one of them actually made a mistake. They actually taught something. And how do you tell if it's a fawn or an adult? And basically, you look at the head, whereas the nose compared to the eyes carries the back of the head.
Yeah, yeah.
If the nose to the eyes is longer than the eyes at the back of the head, it's an adult. But okay, now I have some reference that I can look at.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because it's for the does, obviously you don't want to, if you can help it, you don't want to shoot a button buck.
Right.
And to be able to tell, okay, yeah, that's a doe, and that's not a doe. Could be a doe fawn or a button buck, but yeah, that short little nose. Lots
Yeah.
of
Until I seen that, it's like I didn't know. I thought one was an
yeah,
adult, but no, it was a button buck. It's like I couldn't tell the difference. I didn't know.
right.
I didn't see any racks, so I figured it was a doe. Well, no, it
Yeah.
wasn't until I rolled it over. Now I know, so now I can skip, shooting the fawns because it's really nice tender meat, but there's not much of it.
Especially if it's by itself, it's like, you think it's big, but you think it's big because there's not another deer there to compare it to.
Right.
And you're like, is that so? Yeah, we try not to shoot button bucks around here, but all kinds of tricks that you learn out there.
Yeah. Now a new hunter, your first time out bow hunting, shoot whatever.
Shoot whatever. That's what I
If
did.
fawn comes in, shoot it.
You
Now,
shoot it.
let's talk about after your first one. Let's identify which is adult and which were fawns and avoid shooting the fawns.
Yeah,
But for your first one, one comes walking in by itself, shoot it. If a doe and a fawn comes walking in, now then it's up to you if you want to shoot the doe while the fawn is still there, or
yeah,
wait a little bit longer. Let it pass until you get a doe come through without a fawn. Um, because then you that's up to you. I had one time I had a doe come walking with a fawn, and the doe beds down less than 20 yards from my tree stand. The doe goes walking off. I was sitting there watching this fawn, and I was just waiting for it to eventually come back and picked up the fawn and took off.
oh,
I was waiting for
man.
another doe to come in without a fawn to shoot because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wanted to shoot
yeah.
that one, get us, it's fairly early season. They'll survive,
Right.
but let them grow a little bit bigger, then I'll have, you know, more meat for next year to hunt.
Yeah. If the leaves are still green, I'm trying to get one that's not with a fawn. That's just what I do. The late season's the best as far as I'm concerned because then, yeah, I'll shoot a doe and that's fine.
Because
Um,
the fawns are old enough now that they're not depending on the mom anyway.
they don't need mom anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're already going.
Um, yeah. Lots of lessons in the woods there.
Yeah. Well, what's been your most memorable time that you spent in the woods?
So realistically, probably the day I missed that giant buck.
Yeah, that would be memorable.
Yeah, that was
Depressing
pretty
but memorable.
memorable. Um, but actually, it's a series of three because this I couldn't have made this up if I tried. But 3 years in a row, I go out to Illinois every year to hunt with a friend of mine, and it's always during the Matthews bow launch. So we will have done a video ahead of time, but it's going to launch while I'm out in Illinois. And so I'm always sitting in a tree stand. Okay. First year, I'm out there and it's a horrible day. It's like 85 degrees and 50-mile-an-hour winds. So I'm like, well, I'll go sit in a tree just because it's November, but I don't have high expectations. I'm on my phone, things are going wrong with the launch. I'm texting with people back at work, blah, blah, blah. And I remember had my phone right here, and up and right over top of it, I see a real nice buck. I was like, whoa, whoa. So I set it down, I stand up, boom, shoot it. It's like a 140-inch 8-pointer. It's like, cool. I'm telling everybody, hey, it's Matthews launch day. I have the new Matthews. I just shot this thing. So I go out the next year, and I'm out there, same thing, same day, Matthews launch day. I'm on my phone, same thing. We're having issues, messing around, and while I'm doing that, oh, here comes a nice buck. I shoot another one. So now 2 years in a row, I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And so third year I go, I'm like, all right, there's no way this happens 3 years in a row. I'm sitting in this tree stand. It's not the best day. I'm messing around my phone, and behind me, I just hear, brrr. I was like, holy cow, that is a big one. I turn around and I see this tiny doe running straight at me, and there's just a ginormous buck behind her. The doe comes and is standing right at the base of my tree, and I'm in a ladder stand. I'm kind of turned around, twisted around, and I'm thinking, I bet you I can stand up. That buck's not going to care. He's looking at me. He sees me. So I just stand up. The doe doesn't see me. She's freaking out about him. So I just stand up, and he just keeps looking at me. All right. I pick up my bow. When I picked up my bow, he got a little nervous. And when I drew, he just hopped away about 10 yards, turned broadside in this little hole, and I shot him, drilled him. And I remember I'm like, 3 years in a row, you got to be kidding me. And then my buddy came to pick me up. He's like, well, was he good? And I was like, to be honest, antler wise, I have no idea what he is. All I know is that is the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life. He was with this doe, and I was like, he was like 5 times the size of this doe. So we get him, we find him, track him and find him, and there's this ginormous deer. I think he was 280 pounds, just a giant, giant deer. He was a 10 point, I think, but he had like some broken tines and stuff. Wasn't anything spectacular rack wise, but that's the biggest deer I've ever shot. But 3
280
years in a
pounds.
row,
Huge.
Matthews launch day, I killed my buck. Last year, I finally broke the streak. Didn't shoot one that day. So that was pretty
That's a
cool.
streak you'd like to keep going, though.
Yeah, exactly. I was kind of expecting it then. Once I was anticipating it, it's like it wasn't real anymore. The other three was all genuine issues, and it caught me off guard. But yeah, that was pretty cool.
Your mind was on something else, and they couldn't pick up on the fact that you were trying to kill him.
Yeah, yeah, just yeah, crazy stuff.
Yeah, that was definitely some crazy stuff. Yeah, you always have some lot of cool little stories just being in the tree stand and from
Yeah,
birds landing on your feet or climbing up on top, landing on your shoulders and I've had them land close enough I can kick them, but I haven't had land on me yet. But um, that there's one time I was out and I watched the frost forming on my bow as it come up. So all the tree branches, everything all covered with frost. And driving home, there were a bunch of evergreen trees alongside one road. They were all frosted over. And now there's houses
man.
there, so there's no trees. But
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's I don't have I wouldn't say I have places to hunt. They're not the best, but I have places that I can go where there are deer around here. But I've been discovering the last couple of years what I like is I think my farthest away place is 15 minutes. I have stuff I can walk right out and hunt. And I found that I like being close to the deer that I hunt. So then I'm kind of scouting all year. Just if I go out and ride my bike, hey, I'm scouting. I'm driving past place I hunt, riding past places. Want to go for a walk in the woods? Go right out here and, do some scouting, pick things up. And so it's kind of, when I was younger, I was more about, oh, I got to go find the biggest bucks and hunt that. And, I might have to drive very far. And I don't know. As I've gotten older, I like the local chase, and I don't care
Yeah,
so much. I have cameras everywhere, so I know what's out there. There's no point in holding out for a 140 because it doesn't exist.
right.
um, so, hey, you just go try and target the biggest one I do have access to.
Yeah, that's kind of nice. I got two properties real close. One's a mile and the other one's like 3 miles away. But they're not the best. The one's a field with a creek and all the trees on the other side of the other side of the creek where we don't have permission to hunt. So when they come walking over here, and the other one is the only trees there is basically on the fence row. So
Yeah.
it's kind of a travel area there, and you don't see them a lot during the day. And we've killed some there. They
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
through, but it's not that high traffic area that we'd like it to be, and
Right. Yeah.
it's there.
I used to have places like that. Most of them now are housing developments.
Yeah, well, this is far enough away from any big city that
Yeah.
they're not going to build houses out this far just yet.
I, I'm I'm protected now where I am because the Amish live around and they don't sell to developers.
Oh yeah,
So there's good. There's a park across the street from me. It starts. I have the leading edge of 1,000 acres of a county park. I have a permit to hunt in there, bow hunt only. So there's a lot of preserved land around me and Amish farms. So it's pretty good. It's good enough. There's not
yeah,
going to be any giants, but
and
it's
and
fun.
I if a buck comes by, that's fine. If not, then I just shoot does. To
Yeah,
me, it actually tastes better. So
yeah, for sure. No, I have no qualms about that. In the park that I hunt, where I can bow hunt, that's one of the requirements that's they don't allow hunting. It's about 1,000 acres. They don't allow general hunting. There's a small group of us. We have our assigned areas. So, but the deal is you got to shoot does. They don't want just buck hunters in there. So they want to, we try and I try and shoot at least one every year. Last year, I think I shot three in there, but there are plenty of does. So I like shooting them. Hey, it's good practice. I keep telling new bow hunters, you want to learn about shooting deer? Shoot deer. That's
right
the best way you're going to learn.
when you say, "Oh, I only want to shoot a buck," I only want to shoot a buck. Okay, but you're not going to shoot
Yeah.
many.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's it's amazing what you learn, every one you shoot. Okay, where did I shoot that? Cut it open. What did I get? What was the angle? That's stuff you can only learn one way. And
Yeah,
that's
got to
by
put an
shooting
arrow in it,
deer. Yeah.
cut it open,
And
see
see
where you
what
hit it.
happens. Because it's amazing um, what you think, oh, that's a bad shot, and it actually kills the deer almost instantly, or that I thought that was a good shot. My friend that I hunt with in Illinois, he always told me, he said he appreciated me. He said because he could count on me to tell him the truth. Every other hunter, it's, oh, I drilled him, and then he'd go out and he'd follow a blood trail for 800 yards, and it's pin pricks and nothing.
Yeah,
But I would tell him, I didn't hit him too good. And he'd be like, all right, I know what I'm in for. Or I'd be like, yeah, I smoked him. He's like, okay, we're going to find this deer. But I had no problems admitting, nah, I hit him a little far back. We ought to wait.
yeah,
Although I hit one. So Tim Gillingham one year was on me all the time about shooting these thorn broadheads, thorn rift. You got to shoot them. You got to shoot them. All right. So I was like, I'm going to shoot these things. Went out to Illinois and I hit this thing, and it's a 2.2-inch cut when the blades are deployed, but they're completely enclosed inside the tip when it's loaded. Nothing, no part of the blade sticks out. Perfect cylinder. So there's no drag caused by any blades. And so I hit this deer. I knew it was back. And so my buddy came, I guess it was about an hour. We waited and we just wanted to see what the blood trail was like. We start following this blood trail, and it was like a blind man could follow this blood trail. But we followed it for 500 yards, steady.
Jeez.
Never got to a time where it was like, all right, you stand there, let me go look for blood. No, it was constant. Blood, 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 blood. Found the deer, the buck dead at the end. And now this is including the tracking time. It's probably an hour and a half after I shot it. He was stiff as a board. And I hit him straight through the liver. But that broadhead had such a big cut, and he bled so much from that I'm thinking he just ran 500 yards, fell down dead. There was no stopping. We never found a place where he stopped. But I would have thought that's not the best hit. I mean, I figured we'd find him. But I mean, he was stone dead an hour and a half later. He was stiff.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the liver and lung because the liver bleeds so much and it fills the lungs up and then they drop pretty quick.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah. Yeah, you never know until you start doing that. And then you can say, all right, here's what I'm in for. Maybe I ought to let that one go a little bit. I don't need to, you're always going to have ones that trick you, but for the most part, once you see it a bunch of times, it's like, all right,
yeah.
I know what's happening.
Yeah. You got to find the trail and find where you shot them. And there is one I shot it. I was wanted to be in my tree stand at 4 o'clock, about 4:10. Some kids out walking around and they kicked up the deer ahead of time because it's getting down where I was at after shooting time. So I wanted to move north so I could intercept it quicker. Well, I drove back and it's kind of trotting and it's like, okay, I shot. Well, end up being not a good shot. Especially gut shot at it. And they're like, okay, well this is not good. So I sat in there for an hour until my hunting buddy shows up, and then we went down and found um, some blood, and we waited a little bit longer, and then we got up and walked, and deer got up and run off.
Man.
So we went where it got up from, and sure enough, big pool of blood there. So that was it. So we just walked out, so we knew where to come back the next night. Problem was talking about 3 inches of snow that night.
Uh,
It snowed. We come back the next night. I tell Randy and his son, we're looking for a lump of snow. I
yes.
found a lump of snow, and it was the deer.
How
The only
about
thing
that?
froze was its lower legs. The
No
inside the
kidding.
body was still warm. That was the next night,
How
and it was
about
below
that?
freezing.
Huh.
And that's why if you do make one of those bad shots, you're in for you might as well not even bother for another whole day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because if we'd have got up and chased it again, would have never found it.
Right.
And it only went about 30 yards from where it laid down the first time.
How about that? Huh.
So, that's something we learned is if it is a bad shot, you, just find your first blood, mark it, come
Yeah.
back the next night.
Come back.
Don't say,
Yeah.
well, it was a good shot. No, it wasn't a good shot. It was a bad shot. We all make them,
Yeah,
so we make a bad
absolutely.
shot once in a while and just like, well, that's what happens. And, I had another
Yeah.
time when I drew back on that deer and I knew that pin was right on that right behind that back shoulder where it's supposed to be. And I shot. And when we did find it, I hit the artery in the back leg.
How about that?
Now, because I know where that pin was at.
Yeah.
Well, I see two sets of pins. My right eye sees a nice bright set of pins. My left eye sees a little blurrier pins.
Aha.
So my mind has blocked out the blurry sets of pins.
Yeah.
Well, my right eye is now not my clear eye anymore. My left eye is. So what did my mind pick up? The
Uh,
left eye pins. So
gotcha.
my left eye was picking up the pins on the kill zone, but no, it was actually on the back. And it's like, what's going on? It's like, I know that pin was there because I seen it clear as could be because I
Yeah.
don't see the other set of pins. And so I went down to the range, and when I practice, I always close my left eye and practice because I'm just trying to develop that part of it. And I hunt
Right.
with both eyes open. Well, I'm nailing the target. I got a 5 spot up. I'm shooting the upper right hand corner, and because I know it's like something going on left, and my left eye close, nailing it every time. Open up both eyes. I miss the target to the left.
Uh,
It's at 20 yards, and I close up right on. Open up. It's like, oh, now I know what's going on.
oh,
You know,
wow.
Wrong guy picking it up. And I always wear a
Yeah.
baseball cap. I don't have it on here, but I normally wear a baseball cap. And I found if I have a hooded sweatshirt on, the hooded sweatshirt does not move. I turn my head, it blocks my left eye.
Oh, gotcha.
So if I have hooded sweatshirt on, I turn my head, it blocks my left eye, and now I can
Yeah.
still see my pins. Before what I do is like constantly blinking and make sure I had the right one, because after that, it's like till I discovered
Right.
that I'm trying. I can't close it and see. I like they'll see because you use it for everything else,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, so you're constantly
Well,
blinking. It's like force me to use the right eye pin, and
all things that you have to work out one way or another. You figure
yeah.
out.
And of course now the eye's blurry enough that the pins are all blurry, and I got fiber optic pins, and it's kind of weird. I have like my red pin has a black
Yeah.
dot in the center of it. That's what I see.
No kidding.
Yeah, instead of
Huh.
being a whole red, I see a black dot in the center of my
Yeah.
pins,
How
and
about that?
forget about the yellow lights and the green pins. Those mixed impossible. I see the red real well. I can't see the others very well. They're
Is
just
that
not bright
right?
enough. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm reverse. I see green really well. I don't see the red ones very well.
Oh, yeah. That's why I
Just
like my 20-yard pin being red.
yeah, yeah, that's why I like mine being green.
Yeah, there again, that's the difference. Each person's different. Like when I
Everybody's
was
different.
teaching archery, I have one way of teaching. Um, I spent many years in martial arts and then, going through, learning back release and everything. So I've kind of combined them into what makes perfect sense to me. And when I explain it, normally makes perfect sense. I teach everybody the exact same way and then I modify it to work for them.
Aha.
You know,
Gotcha.
it, because that's how it works best for me, not
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're
I want
right.
my red, I want my 20-yard pin red. You want it green. Okay, we'll make
Yeah,
your top one green.
that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
whatever works for you. That's the thing.
I am with these pros all the time and they all do their own thing different and they're all, world class high level archers, but how they hit the middle, they don't all do it the same way.
No,
Just the way it is.
no. If our bodies were all exactly the same, then we could all shoot exactly the same.
Yeah. That's what's great about archery.
Yeah.
Something for well, Rob always said, archery is a sport that has no age, high or low, no body type. You don't have to be athletic, none of that. You if you can pull back the bowstring, that's it. That's the only requirement. Um, it's just one
Yeah.
of those sports that pretty much anybody can do.
Yeah. And no matter how you pull it back, it could be, pushing with your feet. It could be, grabbing the string with your teeth. It
For
could be
sure.
anyway.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to have two hands to
No,
do it.
there's a what's his name? Eric Bennett, I think it is, shoots recurve for the US. And he only has one arm. He has a mouth tab, draws it back and shoots it that way. Of course, what's his name? Matt Stutzman shoots with his
Yeah.
feet. Just they make it work. I met a lady 2 years ago, I think it was, who's completely blind, and she was shooting 50 meters. She made it work. She had a system set up for how she could aim, and she was blind. So course, plenty of guys in wheelchairs shooting.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's cool to see that when you see these people who are doing all this, figuring out a way to make it work for them. I kind of like that.
And there's a lot of ways of doing it. I had one guy that had MS. So normally you're going to have a little bend in your arm. Well, with MS, he couldn't, it just shit, you had to lock it out. So now
Huh?
we're modifying because he has to lock that arm out in order, otherwise he just can't hold it. And
Yeah,
so we modify it to work for him. And if you have you can't bend that hand that you're holding a bow with like that, you might have to go a little bit different and maybe change your grip because you can't push with that heel
can't
part
do
of
it.
your hand.
Yeah,
There's all kinds. That's I think is kind of the fun stuff is, okay.
for sure.
If everybody picked it up and shot perfect, it's like, okay, what fun is that? I don't know. I want something to do here. I want something to figure out.
If everybody picked it up and shot perfect, that's a crossbow.
Yeah, which is still archery.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. They're out there shooting. This was the first year in Pennsylvania that bow hunters killed more bucks than gun hunters. First year ever. And 67% of the archery hunters now hunt with a crossbow.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah. So we figure that's the crossbow effect, but it's not like the all of a sudden the total number of bucks exploded. It's still the same number. It's just who's shooting them. And actually, what's been happening here is just gun hunters have been picking up a crossbow. They're not different people. It's just that same gun hunter. Now he also bow hunts with a crossbow.
Well, it gives you a bit longer season too.
Right. Nicer weather. Yeah, our bow season in some parts of the states, in parts of the state, it's you got 10 weeks. The rest of it, it's kind of about 6 or 7. But yeah, I mean, for me, by the time gun season comes around, if I haven't shot a buck, I kind of figure, well, on to next year.
Yeah. Well, here our deer season for archery starts in September, goes through December 31st.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then rifle
that's
season is 9 days in November. Now, if we're
you have
out bow
9 days.
hunting during rifle season, we have to wear orange.
Yeah, same here. Yep, we got to do
Except
that
the
too.
whole month of December is muzzleloader. They have to wear orange, but we're out there same time. We don't have to wear orange.
Correct. Same with
That,
us. Well,
that,
no, our late season muzzleloader hunters, they don't have to wear orange either. Yeah. Early season they do, late season they don't.
yeah, we just have one season for muzzleloaders. It's the whole month of December, you know,
Gotcha.
and they've got to wear orange, and we don't have to wear orange. I'm like, okay,
Our our the reason our muzzleloaders don't for the late season is it's flintlock only. It's meant to be a real primitive
oh,
muzzleloader
okay.
season. So they're wearing their buckskins and all that stuff. And because it's flintlock, open sights, no scopes, it's pretty primitive.
So
Um,
you're not taking a long shot.
no, no, And I've hunted with a flintlock. I missed the first 13 deer I shot at with a flintlock before I finally killed one. And most of those, I was like, if I had my bow right now, that deer would be dead. And I just missed it with a gun. I was I was horrible with that thing before I finally shot one.
Yeah. Well, and there's most likely the round ball, which don't fly very straight.
Did you off the bench? I was could drive tacks with that thing in 100 yards. It was when I went into the woods. I did the same thing. Even if I had a rest, every time the hammer fell and the flint struck, I picked up. Same thing. Before it ignited the charge, picked up every time. I just couldn't stop it. Of course, when I'm on the bench at the range, it didn't matter because everything's rested. But out in the woods, I was picking my head up every time. And so and
It,
finally, when I killed number 14, I was like, don't move your head, just squeeze it. And I didn't move.
Like the archers that shoot and try and look over to see the arrow flying. It's like,
I always said if you want to see a bad shot, look at
right.
it.
That's why you use your cameras now. And
Yeah.
the cell phones, they got such great cameras in them. Video, if you want to see what the arrow's doing, video it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's the thing I tell, anybody that's interested, take a video of your shooting, upload it to Archery Talk 101 Facebook group. We'll take a look at it, give you pointers.
For sure. Yeah.
Now, if you're not open to suggestions, don't upload it, but
Yeah. If you
because
can't
we're going to
take the
give you
heat.
suggestions.
So something I started doing, so I shoot a lot on camera. So I would tune a bow, paper tune at the normal like 6 feet. I could get a bullet hole there, and then they'd do video of me shooting longer distance, 50, 60 yards, and I'm watching this arrow fishtail. I'm like, I know I tuned that thing. I shot that thing. I got a bullet hole. So I started backing up and shooting again through paper at 15 yards. And I was amazed how many times I could get what looked like a perfect bullet hole at 6 feet. And at 15 yards, I'm getting some tail. And so if I could get a bullet hole at 6 feet and then another one at 15, then I had good arrow flight. And, I verified it through video. When I did both of those, I get the camera guy, okay, now shoot this. And they would all fly good. But that was just something I'd have told you, oh yeah, this bow's tuned, got a bullet hole. But what somebody told me, not all bullet holes are created equal.
Right. Well, and you can take the same bow and have terrible tears. Change your grip, quit gripping the bow, and now you got a
Oh yeah,
good hole.
for
Because
sure.
just the way you grip it is going to cause errors.
Yeah.
If you have your hand open, it's going to affect it differently than if you have it tight against it, as opposed to just completely
The death
relaxed.
grip.
Yeah, you don't need. I put a sling on mine, so you don't have to hang on. I don't hang
Yeah.
on to my bows. If
Nope,
I
me
shoot at a
neither.
deer out of the tree stand and I don't have my sling on, my bow's on the ground
I'm gonna
because I
drop
don't
it.
hang on to it. And
Yes.
you know,
Same.
I one time somebody I seen one of the forums, they said they couldn't get it to have good tears no matter what they did. They all kinds nothing. It's like, well, quit grabbing your bow for one. You shoot and grab the bow. That's going to cause it to do anything if you're
Yeah.
grabbing onto it. And without seeing them shoot, it's like I can't tell you what you're doing wrong because I got to
Right.
watch you how bad you're messing up on your form or your
Yeah.
release. You'll see people that have that finger stretched way out and they just
Oh
cram
yeah.
on that trigger. I get well, I don't get a kick. I just like I want to slap some of these people. It's like
They
this.
they
Quit,
like
quit.
reaching like this, and I try to get them. Okay, just get it like this. They don't like that. They want to be out here,
Yeah,
completely extended.
yeah. And you see them, and some of them shoot pretty decently, but you know what? Um, you have bad form, bad release, and I like to tell them it's like, okay, here's one of the things that I tell people when I find that they're an archer and using a release. This is I'm going to give you first lesson for free. Quit pulling the trigger. They'll look at you like, well, how do you know? Yeah, I've been doing this a long time. You're pulling the trigger, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then the next thing is see if they're even coachable. And if they have an open mind or closed mind, I says, okay, hold your finger out, straight out, concentrate on the spot. Now, make your finger move without thinking about it. Oh, I can do it. Switch hands. Yeah, I can do it. Lesson's over. You're never going to learn. So if they don't pass that test, then I just wash my hands of them because they're not coachable. They can't learn.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and then it's like, oh yeah, okay, now I can teach you. Because if you don't get
Yeah.
the concept of focus on this spot, as soon as you think about moving, as soon as you think about moving the finger, what did you stop doing? Because you're thinking
Well,
about the finger. You're not aiming anymore.
so even that. Now Joel Turner teaches the opposite. He talks about get your aim and he says close the door. And he says now only think about your finger. And he says, if you can tell yourself squeeze and not think about your bow hand, that's how he teaches. Different
But you don't want to think about
different
your bow
strokes for
hand.
different folks.
You
What's
want to
that?
focus on you don't think about your bow hand because if you're thinking about your bow hand, you're not aiming.
No, I meant
Aim at your spot, yeah.
what's happening at your front end. He's like your aim. Once you get your aim set, stop thinking about it. Focus on your release. That's what he teaches. But as we said, more than one way to skin a cat in archery.
Yeah, and find somebody that you like that like the way they teach and it makes sense to you.
That's it.
That's the
Yeah,
biggest thing.
for
That
sure.
don't make sense to me. Um, but
George Riles had the best description that worked for me as far as how to activate a hinge. It just made sense to me the way he taught it.
right.
And so I subscribe to his system. Some people just teaching about pulling through, keep pulling, bring your shoulder blades together, et cetera, which that works for some people. Where George said, the release be like you're allowing it to slip through your fingers. He's like, if you allow it to just relax your hand kind of stretches out, the release will fire. For whatever reason, that system worked for me. I was able to think about that. So,
Yeah. Well, and when you're thinking about, back to the release, that's how you're going to fire a gun. You're going to get there. You're going to be in position. All you're going to do is think about squeezing the trigger
yeah.
because you don't have to aim. You're already there.
Yeah.
And he's teaching firing a bow just like you do a gun because
Yes,
that's how
he
you
was a
teach
sniper.
shooting gun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's
He
going to
was a
translate
sniper.
that into shooting the bow because that's what
Yeah.
he's done for
That's what he's
many, many
done.
years.
Yeah.
I've done both of them, and I teach the archery different because if I pick up a recurve, I shoot it completely different into the compound. I can shoot recurves without sights. I can't shoot compounds without sights. I grab that
Yeah.
compound,
Me
and
neither.
I can't instinctively shoot a compound.
No.
Just
That
like I
that
pick up a
is
rifle, I shoot it differently than do a shotgun, which is different than a handgun.
yeah.
They're all different, and I shoot them differently, and my mind changes to what I'm looking at. My recurve, I don't
Right.
have sights. I don't come back
No,
and
me
reference
neither.
off of the tip of the arrow, and because the tip of arrow here or here a little bit different in your draw length, and that changes what that tip is, and I just look at the target where I want it to go, aim, pull up, shoot.
Yes. That's same. I do that same way. Instinctive. I don't know how it works. Somehow it gets to where if I try, it's funny if I with the recurve, if I try and do use the point of the arrow, I usually shoot worse than if I just say, all right, draw back. Yep. That seems to work way better.
Because what are you focusing on when you're
Go
looking at the
figure.
tip? You're focusing on the tip of the arrow. And
Yeah,
what you're
yeah,
not
yeah.
doing, you're not aiming. You're
Not
not looking at where you want
figuring
it to
out what
go.
I want to hit. Who cares where the tip is? What do I need to hit?
Right. So
Uh,
yeah, we're pushing about almost 2 hours here now. So
oh, okay.
yeah, it's been really great talking with you, and I'm sure
For
we'll
sure.
do this again, and you know as we have things coming up at Lancaster events going on, go ahead and post them
Absolutely.
in the Arch Talk 101 group. Let's get that all promoted going,
For
and
sure.
that's one of the things allowing the group is posting the archery events and stuff like that because that's
Gotcha.
all supplying stuff from. I don't allow people to go in and sell items in it, because it's not a
Sure.
sale for sale site.
Yeah.
If there's
Yeah.
interest, that there's a lot of for sale sites, and that's not. I want this all content, and I have
Gotcha.
another group that I run that I don't allow you to sell stuff in there either. Um, I do get people once in a while. You might see somebody trying to sell a T-shirt, but they don't last long because I see them.
I
I delete it and ban them.
if I put in that site what we sell, I'd have to put in 80,000 products. So that might take up too much space.
Yeah. But we go in there and I've been thinking about putting together a list of vendors that provide stuff. But go ahead and post. If you have an event coming up, like post information for those events, the shoots and stuff.
Yeah, we have
That's
our big customer appreciation event coming up in the end of June. That's super fun because we put out a field of steel targets.
Ah,
And it's ridiculous how people love shooting those steel targets, blowing up arrows. Last year, we blew up over 1,400 arrows in one day,
oh, geez.
and they just love it.
Arrows are too expensive. I'm not
I
into shooting them steel targets like
we
that.
I sat there with the Easton rep and stood behind one guy and watched him shooting match grade Axis. And I'm like, man, that's and he missed like five in a row. I thought, boy, that's salty right there. Those are
Yeah,
not cheap arrows,
no, no.
but they can't get enough of it. They love it.
Hey, if that's what they want, go ahead, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we give away a bunch of prizes, and it's just a fun day um, that we have. We do that every year in June. So
Yeah, we'll have to put a link to that in the group and let everybody know where it's at, and I'll put a link in the description as well for that. And
I'll
yeah,
get
yeah,
it
it's
in there.
been great. In closing, what would you like to say to our audience?
Hey, just get out there and shoot your bow. That's what we all love to do. Um, Me as much as anybody, and a business like ours, as I said, is going to be good just with more people shooting the bow. And it's amazing. It's always amazing to me how many people love it the first time they pick it up. Never done it before, a little nervous. Man, you get them to launch an arrow that hits what they're aiming at, boom, you got them. They're hooked.
Oh yeah, I've seen that several times. Like the guy comes in, get a new bow, and then the wife or girlfriend's with him and say, "You want to shoot one? Oh no, you want to shoot one?
Yes.
Just shoot one." It's like, oh, okay, shot one. Can I shoot again? Oh, of
Yeah.
course you can shoot again. And now we have another archer hooked.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just fun. I just love it. So,
But yeah,
and we
we'll
do
put a link in the description to Lancaster Archery, and then we'll put one
good.
into that event, and we can get some people out there, and anything to do to promote archery. That's what we're doing here.
Absolutely. You bet. Hey, appreciate your time, Roy. Thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun and a lot of cool stories, and we'll do this again sometime, and
Definitely.
uh, have something come up interesting, or maybe when a new bow line or something comes out, we can talk about that or something, and
For sure.
just do that. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. You can listen to the audio on audible.com. It's free to listen to there. I can go out to Spotify or any of the places you listen to your normal podcast, as well as you can watch this video on my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. It's going to be there, and pretty soon I'll have my website back up and going. You'll be able to watch them there, but right now it's not up and running. And probably the best place to do it is go into Archer Talk 101 Facebook group, and there you can watch this video as other videos and other information. And have any problems with anything, just message the group, and somebody will be able to help you out with it. So it's been great having you on the phone, PJ, and we'll just do this again. And my name is Roy Canterbury. I've been your host today on Arch Talk 101, and we'll catch you on the next one.